It's that time of the day again.
Oh, great. Guy's gonna be late again.
Time to get informed about the nerdy things you
I
love.
have plenty of time.
On today's show, Avengers Infinity War. Marvel decides to move up the release date? DCEU rumors. What the heck is going on over there at Warner Brothers? Star Wars. Apparently, JJ Abrams wrote a draft for The Last Jedi. We're going over all of that, plus your questions.
I'm gonna be late!
I'm your host, Josh Lucas. This is the Nerdy News Rundown, broadcasting live from Uncanny in the King of Prussia Mall, Philadelphia. Let's get this show started. Oh man, oh man, oh man. What is up, all of you beautiful nerds all over the globe? I'm, of course, Josh. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. Great show today. Very big news dropped yesterday. I'm very excited to get into it. I've got a lot of thoughts. Before we get into all of that, I want to say a couple things. I want to say thank you to everybody that watched the show this week. This was a brand new idea that we're sort of building this airplane while we're in the air. We're going to figure out a good way to be interactive, maybe have some guests in here, expand the show, get things bumping. But everybody that watched the show this week, you were sort of watching a science experiment. I was just doing this. Sometimes in life, I feel like you can pontificate a little bit too much. So if you don't just go do something and commit to something, you'll never actually get it done. So that's what this week was about. So everybody that watched, thank you guys so much. This is going to keep going. We're going to evolve this thing. It's awesome. I want to shout out Uncanny, of course, for sponsoring the show. They've got a ton of awesome stuff in here. I mean, this thing's actually not for sale. This is Dustin's, but he let me use it because of the Infinity War news. But all this dopeness is available for purchase. Go out to your local comic book store, get a pull list going on at Uncanny, and get some cool swag, man. Because if you're like me, you love this stuff, man. You really do. So shout out to Uncanny as always. Now, let's get right into the first topic. And man, oh man, oh man. I was so excited to talk about this. This is, of course, the big news. Avengers Infinity War has had its release date moved from May 4th to April 27th. When I first saw this, actually, it was a guy I work with in comics, Sean Mack. Shout out to Sean Mack, one of the hardest working, smartest men in indie comics and in comics in general. But Sean Mack put up that post. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that it was actually true. But yes, indeed, Avengers Infinity War has been moved in the United States from its original release date on May 4th to April 27th. Now, let's get in this. I've got a lot to say about this. I'm sure you've heard about it, maybe even watched a couple of videos about it, sort of heard a lot of people's thoughts about what is going on here. So I want to sort of first start with why I think this is such a big deal. Because some people I was talking to were like, well, it's not really a big deal. It's only a week. Why is this such a big deal? Well, this is literally Disney kind of firing shots across the bow of all other studios in Hollywood. And here's what I mean by this. The way that things work in Hollywood is when you say you're going to release a movie on a date, it is considered sort of written in stone. When you do that, more or less, it is sort of a flag or a signal to other studios, hey, this is happening here, rearrange your slate or your releases accordingly, okay? And so there were a lot of things going on. Now, if you've been following this story a little bit, you'll know that Deadpool actually moved its release date. So they were already sort of, starting to go against the grain there, and Disney decided to just totally change things up and move Infinity War. Now, the way they went about it was really cool on Twitter, too, and a nice little interaction with Robert Downey Jr. He was being tweeted to back and forth at Marvel's account and decided to, that's the way they decided to release it, which I thought was awesome. Very, very cool. But this was a big deal. So I think, and I watched a lot of people talk about this yesterday, something is happening in media. Things are changing. Of course, everybody knows this. But, the Paradox, the Cloverfield Paradox movie, the way that they released that movie right after the Super Bowl, I thought was just genius marketing, so brilliant. And I think that this is almost an example of a big studio with a theatrical release making a similar type decision. I mean, they've got posters, they've got billboards, they've got merchandise, comics, stuff that literally have that May 4th release date on it, and now that doesn't matter. But I think what people are understanding is the internet is so powerful, and this thing was trending. People are talking about it. It is so powerful that you can do things and make a bigger splash. Now, let's get into why I think they did this. I think there's a couple of different reasons. I mean, obviously, money talks, baby. And that is exactly why they did this, the biggest reason why. And I think one thing is because of Black Panther. Now, we talked about on the show yesterday that Black Panther is just crushing it at the box office. Might even pass $1 billion this weekend. Very, very cool. I think Disney smartly realized that the closer they are to Black Panther, the better. Actually, what they want to do is sort of carry over the momentum of that film, because even though I think they expected Black Panther to do well, I don't think anybody expected it to do as well as it is doing. It's literally almost unbelievable what's going on with that box office. So I think you bump it a little bit closer to Black Panther, ride the wave, ride the momentum. I also think the Deadpool 2 thing was creeping a little bit. They want another week between them and Deadpool 2. And, of course, Solo, a Star Wars story. They want to give plenty of room and cushion for Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can look at this if you're a Star Wars fan, which obviously I am. It's like, okay, maybe this means they have a little bit more faith in Solo, because they're like, no, it can take a big box office chunk, so we need to leave it that room. That's one way to think of it. You could also think of it as, wow, this movie's in trouble. We need to give it all the help we can. Let's back up the Avengers Infinity War thing. So there's a couple of different ways that you could think about, but I think it definitely had to do with that, with money, right? Disney's really, really smart with this kind of stuff, guys. I also believe that a big factor in this was spoilers. Spoiler town. And like I said, the international release, or most importantly, the European release, was going to be on April 27th. And then the following week, it was going to roll out in the States. Marvel and Disney have been really good about rolling out into certain marketplaces. They do this thing. I mean, look at the Spider-Man Homecoming example. That was a really well planned out, slow rollout of releases into marketplaces, but it ended up paying off. But with this movie in particular, and I think particularly with American audiences, Spoiler City. I mean, this movie is, look, it can't be overstated. Avengers Infinity War is going to be a monumental historical event for both comic book movies and cinema in general. It's that big. I truly believe that. But the ramifications of things that will happen in this movie are going to affect the MCU in such a way that they can't even tell us what the name of Avengers 4 is, because it literally contains spoilers to what happens in Avengers 3. Real quick side act bar too. In the Blu-ray special features for Thor Ragnarok, Kevin Feige essentially confirms that Avengers 3 and Avengers 4 are a part 1 and a part 2 still. They are still part 1 and part 2 of the story of Thanos versus the Avengers. Very, very cool. So this is a really, really big deal in a really big story. So that is why I think that they did this, the spoilers, the money, different things like that. But I'm very interested to know. I want to know what all of you guys think about this. I mean, are you in the camp where you're like, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's just a week, because that's what my buddy James Razile from the Rebel Scum podcast was just messaging me about? I totally disagree. Sorry, James, I totally disagree with you. I think it's huge, sets a precedent for Hollywood, for studios, what they're going to do. And, man, we get to see Infinity War a whole week earlier. Like, oh, my God, I'm so excited. So I'm pretty pumped about the story. I want to know what all of you guys think about it in the comment section below. Hit me up with some questions. Feel free to hit me up with some MCU questions, too. I'd be more than willing to go into those questions on the next episode, which will be on Monday. Oh, by the way, I'm so terrible at this, but this show's 5 days a week. It's going to be up at noon 5 days a week. We're going to try some streaming next week, experiment with maybe going live. So make sure you subscribe, enable notifications. It's going to be 5 days a week, so I should mention that. Now, let us get into our second topic of the day. The second topic of the day, not as good of news, and it has to do with the DC Extended Universe. There are massive rumors swelling around the internet about some very bad news that's going to happen with regards to the DC films over at Warner Brothers, okay? Now, The person that sort of broke this story, or the person that's credited for causing all of these rumors and different things like that, is John Campea. Now, if you like YouTube the way I like YouTube, you probably are aware of John Campea, but if you're not, he's a pundit. He has a YouTube show very similar to this one, actually movie vlogging, talking about movie vlogs, has a great audience. I love John Campea, respect the hell out of him. And during one of his live streams, I think it was on Tuesday, which he calls Open Mic, he let slip that he knows about something that is going to be happening with the DCEU, and it's really bad. Like, really, really bad, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. And I want to talk about just for a second here the validity of what John said, because I don't think he's the type of guy to just do something like that, say something like that. I think it was kind of interesting the way he dropped it in the open mic, and I really respect him as a content creator. I mean, that was picked up by multiple junkets. It puts a lot of eyeballs on him and the stuff that he does. Very, very cool. But frankly, in Hollywood, a lot of these people, they are hearing things, they're in circles, they're talking about things they can't exactly talk about with the public. So there are a lot of sources and things that are going on over there that do give people this kind of information. So do I think that John is privy to some information? Absolutely. Do I think he's maybe sensationalizing it a little bit? Maybe. And so, you know, if you look at what's happening online, people are speculating, especially on Reddit, the big rumor was that Matt Reeves was no longer going to do the Batman film. And it would appear that something to do with perhaps that Batman film is tied to this news, right? But then someone hit him up on Twitter, and they were like, hey, man, say it ain't so. And he literally tweeted, well, it ain't so. And so that would seem to confirm that he is not leaving the Batman film. So what could this be, right? What could this doom and gloom DC Extended Universe news be? Well, I think, personally, my gut is telling me that it's actually that there is no DC Extended Universe. And they've kind of already said this, right? I mean, they came out, I think it was late last year in a couple different interviews and sort of downplayed the DC Extended Universe. They were like, well, we never called it that. We never decided to call it that, which was really, really weird. We covered it on the channel then, and it was like, man, what's going on over there at DC and Warner Brothers? What are they doing, right? You know, if you're not, okay, so it's not the DC Extended Universe. Well, then what is it? Give it a name, please. So I don't know. There's just a lot of weirdness to the story, but my gut tells me that with Walter Hamada coming back or taking over, with a lot of the changes in leadership, with everything that's going on there, I don't think they're going to do a continuity anymore. I think they're just going to make films and go back to the old way of doing it. So I think Matt Reeves' Batman trilogy is going to be completely separate from the DC Extended Universe. I think that, and they're not going to do shared. Like, it's not like as though Matt's movie is going to launch a new DC Extended Universe. Nope. I don't think that's happening either. I think that's just going to be a dope-ass Batman trilogy or singular film, whatever they decide, and it's not going to tie into anything. I think that basically Warner Brothers is going to completely downplay that, and that means Wonder Woman 2 not tying into anything. Shazam not tying into anything. And I don't know. Like, when I talked to some of my friends in geekdom and things of that nature, there were people that said, okay, that's not really a big deal. Maybe people wouldn't be upset. I think a lot of the hardcore DCEU fans will be very upset. You have to understand that, like, there's actually a large group of people that unabashedly love the DC Extended Universe. They love these films. Even if they don't love all of them, they like the characters being together. They love the idea of the shared universe. And even though I don't actually love what they've done, I do love the idea of a shared universe. And so I think if they decided to kill that, it would piss a lot of people off. So I think that is probably going to be the announcement. I can't really think of anything else that would piss people off the way that John Campea claims people are going to be pissed off when they find out about this news. Now, he said we might get the news in a month, we might get it in a couple months or something like that. So who knows? And I'll be keeping an eye out on that story. But I want to know from you guys, what do you make of these rumors? Do you think Matt Reeves is still doing the Batman film? Do you think this has to do with their shared universe? And would you be super pissed if Warner Brothers decided that they weren't going to do a shared universe anymore? I don't know. I mean, like, I think I've already kind of stated my opinion, but I definitely want to know what you guys think about that. So let's talk about that in the comment section below. Now let's get into the next topic. This one's kind of fun. This has to do with a Star Wars story. And you may have already heard about this, but apparently Daisy Ridley was being interviewed for a magazine in France. And she was being asked about some of the continuity issues that people have with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Now, I have been on record saying this is one of my biggest problems with The Last Jedi. By the way, I like The Last Jedi. I actually really like that film. I would go as far as to say that I love that film. However, there are problems with the movie. One of them for me is that it feels so disjointed when you put it up against The Force Awakens. And so this has been a major complaint of a lot of Star Wars fans. This has been something people have clung on to and brought up to all these actors, these poor directors, and everybody at Lucasfilm. They're going through it right now, right? But it's a fair question. And so the way she responded was very interesting. She said, this is what I think I know. And I really want to preface it there because she literally says, this is what I think I know. So it's like the most wishy-washy sort of self-protected way to answer a question ever. And so whatever, you're protected, Daisy. We're not going to come down on you too hard. But the reality of the situation is she said that she thinks JJ wrote a draft for both Episode 8 and Episode 9. And this was back in 2014, 2015, when he was tasked with writing The Force Awakens. And so, man, there's a lot to unpack here, but let's sort of get into the comments themselves. Do I think they're true? In a way, yes. I think that the truth is sort of, like always, sort of in between what people is saying. You have to sort of read between the lines. And so when JJ was tasked to come on and be the producer, by the way, he's produced all of these movies, including The Last Jedi, including Episode 9, right? So he's a major player within the fabric of the creative force behind these movies. And so I think when he made that decision, because remember, he was reluctant to do it. He's like, no, I'm too big of a fan. I don't want to be attached to this. I just want to go in the theater and watch, right? And there was a meeting he had with George Lucas, and man, oh man, I wish I was a fly on the wall during that meeting, because after that meeting, he kind of changed his tone, right? He was like, okay, maybe I'll do this. Kathy's like, hey, don't you want to know where Luke Skywalker's been? Well, and that sort of brought him back to the fold. So I think at that time, JJ probably wrote like spec scripts or had like sort of a pitch document sort of thing put together for how he would take the trilogy. And there's probably pieces of those outlines that George Lucas famously had and brought to Lucasfilm, and they were like, nah, George, get out of here. Take your billions and go. And so I think there's probably some truth to it, but like this idea that a lot of these journalists and these magazines and websites are trying to perpetuate this idea online that, like, no, there's not continuity issues because JJ actually wrote all these episodes. I think that's absolutely absurd. First of all, even if that was true, look at the final product. Like, you can't objectively tell me that there are not issues in continuity there. I mean, my biggest gripe is the Hux character, right? He's Hitler in The Force Awakens. He's Daffy Duck in The Last Jedi. That's a problem. Also, you have this sort of reverence for the lightsaber. It's sort of this big MacGuffin in the first film. It's literally the whole focus of the movie is this lightsaber, and then Luke Skywalker just throws it over his shoulder and doesn't care about it. And so there are issues in that thematically the connective tissue between the two films. So I think it's crazy for junkets to sort of try to come out and say, hey, JJ wrote a draft for Episode 8. And so Lucasfilm definitely knows what they're doing, and the continuity is definitely sound. However, there is probably some truth to the fact that there are things that Disney knew they wanted to do, a.k.a. Reylo. By the way, guys, I know I get a lot of hate on this channel because people hate this idea of Reylo. I mean, look, I'm sorry. Like, not only do I like it, I objectively think it is their end game. So I'm going to continue to talk about it. But so there were probably things and themes and little beats that Lucasfilm wanted to get to, and JJ probably put forward ideas that he would want to see done in the next two movies, like ways to take the characters. Now, when Ryan was tasked with writing the script, I'm pretty sure he had access to those drafts, right? I'm pretty sure he did. But I think Ryan is the type of guy in the creative force where he wanted to just go and write that movie. He wanted to write his movie. And so that's what happened. He literally went and wrote this thing, and it's written and directed by Rian Johnson. So you can't exactly make that argument that the connective tissue was there because of JJ. Now, What's interesting about this whole thing is it takes me back to this weird story last year where originally you heard Rian Johnson talking about how he had drafts for 9, how he had story ideas for 9. There were even stories about how he was literally going to write 9. And then we were like, no, Trevorrow's completely doing it. He's completely doing it on his own. Of course, that didn't work out. But I think the bottom line here is we have to realize what they are saying, what people are actually saying, and what goes into this creative process. There are all sorts of spec scripts. There are rewrites, constant scripts out there that are bought and purchased and literally written for different movies. So in Hollywood, a film could have a ton of different scripts, a ton of different versions of scripts, depending on what writers they bring in to do punch-ups, to do dialogue, to rewrite. So it's a super complicated process. You can't just say, hey, he wrote these scripts, the story beats are there, and from that, Ryan took it. So I don't think that's what happened. But I will give Lucasfilm a little bit of credit here because I think that the narrative out there that they have no idea what they're doing and that they have literally no plan at all, I don't think that's true. I think that they do have a plan. I just believe that there are certain things that maybe they're okay with the creators taking complete control of. And so Ryan did take complete control of different aspects of the film and different aspects of the story. And I believe JJ and Chris Terrio are going to do the same thing in episode 9. So that's sort of the story out there, the sort of my thoughts about it. Just wanted to sort of break that down, kind of cut through the bull crap and tell you what I honestly think. So I'm interested to hear what all of you guys think about this. Like, do you think that there was stuff that happened in The Last Jedi that JJ was like putting into the mind of Ryan? Or do you think that Ryan sort of took it, did his own thing? What do you think about what's going on with Lucasfilm? Do you think they have no idea? Do you think they have some of an idea? Let's talk about this in the comment section below. And as always, hit me up with your Star Wars questions. We'll go over them in the next episode, okay? So I'm pretty interested to hear what everybody thinks about that. But let's move along to our third topic of the day, or fourth topic of the day, sorry. This is a pretty cool story for me. I'm a big Halo fan. And by the way, shout out to Winston, who comes in and is an intern at Uncanny. I met him on, I think, Tuesday, and he's such a hardcore Halo fan. So Winston, this one's for you, brother. There is a little story that was reported by Heroic Hollywood, which I really love as a website. You guys should definitely go check out Heroic Hollywood. But there is a rumor out there that a Halo TV series, which is being produced by Steven Spielberg's company, will begin shooting later this year. And this is huge news. May or may not actually happen, but it's huge news for a couple of different reasons. One, the Halo franchise, one of the most beloved game franchises of all time, has constantly had things stuck in production hell for films and television. Neil Blomkamp, who was the guy that directed District 9 and Chappie and blanking on that other movie he did, the science fiction with the rich people in space, but it was dope. Neil Blomkamp is an incredible creative force, and he actually shot Halo short films that kind of work together as like episodes. They're amazing. Like, I absolutely love them, especially the end, the rocket launcher, and there's some brutes and stuff. Very, very cool stuff. Then for a long time, Peter Jackson's name was attached to develop a Halo movie. It just really never got traction in Hollywood. There's a bad stigma against video game movies, and you can't really blame Hollywood for feeling that way. I mean, last year we had 2 pretty good attempts in the World of Warcraft movie and in the Assassin's Creed movie, and both of them completely failed. And so you can't blame Hollywood for sort of feeling this way, and I think it's just that they don't get the right creative people involved in these films. But so the Halo movie with Peter Jackson, that was sort of rumored for a long time. They did end up doing some live-action Halo stuff. There was a movie, which I think was like sort of a direct-to-DVD sort of thing. I watched it on Xbox Live. It's not very good. It's not very good. And then there was a short series, which I believe was done for Halo 4 or Halo Reach. I can't remember. But that one was actually pretty cool. So, Halo live-action television series. Could it actually be a thing? I mean, I think nowadays, when you look at the way media is changing, which is something we talked about a little bit before, but essentially, with all these streaming services and different things like that, these companies are looking for content. They are hungry for content. And so I could see a scenario in which, whether it be like a Netflix, an Amazon Prime, one of these companies that is doing a streaming service, Disney maybe, right, could look for the Halo IP, try to develop this show and get it out there. So I think that now is sort of the best time for something like this to actually come into fruition. So I'm excited as a big Halo fan. I'm pretty freaking pumped. I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think it's possible? Do you think we're getting the Halo TV series? And what story would you want them to sort of cover? Because my mind immediately goes to Halo 2, because that's like one of the best video games of all time. But they could do a number of different things, like where the Chief is at now, some of the weird stuff that was going on with the Prometheans and stuff like that. That could be pretty cool. There's like endless source material. The Fall of Reach was great, while depicted in the book and the game. So there's a ton of cool stuff. What story would you want them to cover in Halo if they did end up doing it? Okay. Now I want to try something new with the last part of today's show, and this would be going over mean comments. So I don't know if you know this or not, but people on YouTube can be kind of mean. I get a lot of mean comments on YouTube. And so I thought, man, they do like the celebrity mean tweet stuff. And I thought maybe every Friday on the show, I would end up going over some of these really, really mean comments that people make on the YouTubes. And we could all sort of laugh about them together. Because at the end of the day, like, whenever you're putting yourself out there, whenever you're doing something, you're always going to get negativity. And especially when it comes to fandoms, people are really sensitive. People are very vocal and passionate about what they're into. And so you do get scenarios where you encounter meanness. And I was like, well, why not just have fun with it, okay? So let's show you this first one here. Now, the one I wanted to focus on is actually this FF Strat DH. This was a comment he made on my Ray is not a Mary Sue video. Now, there are plenty of people out there that watch this video and disagree with me, and were civil about it. But this guy literally gets on there and says, she sucks, these movies suck, you suck for supporting this crap. And if you look up there, there's that comment by that Catherine H. I couldn't even put any of her comments on the screen because that's a mild one up there where she's like, fuck off and die. Like, oh my God, like people are absolutely crazy. But you know what I want you guys to do if you're into it? Go find these people and comment on them. And I'm not telling you to go be mean to them. I would literally just maybe say, hey, I hope you're having an okay day. Saw a mean comment you made. I don't know why you're angry, but I hope that you aren't angry anymore. Because maybe there's this crazy thing going on where these people are actually in pain. And if we were super nice to them, it would make a real impact. Or maybe I'm just insane. Okay, so the next one comes to us from J Rex. This one, man, this one is pretty crazy. So this was on a Dragon Ball Super video that I did. Love Dragon Ball Super. He says here, thanks, sweet Jesus, this dog shit garbage got canceled. You're a grown-ass man, and this basically saying that this is a show for kids. It's a giant spit in the face of actual DBZ fans. You are pathetic. You're a lying POS. That Jiren round 1 fight got the lowest ratings ever, and they are canceling it. Now, I was talking about Dragon Ball Super here, how I was upset that it got canceled, how I think that it's a very, very popular show. And, man, I guess some people don't agree. I guess some people were a little bit mad about that. J-Rex in particular. So apparently I like things that are for kids, but I totally do. I'm wearing Goku socks right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm unabashedly nerdy. And so I'm into it. Sorry, J-Rex. It ain't happening, ain't changing anytime soon. This one is particularly fun. Let's show this one. This is Andy Webb, the Den of Turds. Laugh my ass off with a lot of poop emojis. I don't even know what video this was on. I just thought it was pretty funny. So, look, you get negativity out there in the world. There's a couple of different ways you can go about it. I decided we're going to have some fun with it. So let me know what you think about that, because I'm probably going to do this every Friday where we go over the mean comments of the day. But Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the 5th episode of the Nerdy News Rundown. It's been a pretty awesome week. I really like doing this. I haven't even, tweaked the metadata perfectly to go after a big audience. We haven't even blasted out our email list. I wanted to get in here and sort of work these muscles and get used to this workflow and this grind. And it's been a ton of fun. I think I'm going to keep doing it. So if you like the show, give it a like, subscribe to the channel so that you can catch this show 5 days a week up at noon. As I always say, guys, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you on Sunday for Star Wars Sunday. Go check it out. Bye-bye.